one thing, if you are loving, though, if you're a Buckeyes fan, is the play of this team on the field. Julian Sayin, former 5-star, Elite 11 winner, just absolutely just darting it up out there nonstop. And it turns out when you put the ball on target, guys like Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are pretty good dudes to run after the catch, go up and make some winning plays there in the red zone. But, this is the recruiting show. And, of course, those guys are all 5-stars, and Ohio State seems to like the conversion rate seems to be pretty high there in Columbus if you're a 5-star. They might have two real studs coming down the pipe here. Tell me a little bit about Chris Henry and Caden Dixon-Wyatt, if you would.
Yeah, story of the weekend in the recruiting world, Bud, right? We saw Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate absolutely go off against Penn State. Well, the night before, Mater Day, one of the top high school programs in the country, they take on number 1 ranked rival St. John Bosco, and they rally behind Caden Dixon-Wyatt and Chris Henry, two top 247 wide receivers. They're 4-star prospects. They're going to be in the 5-star conversation when the next set of rankings come out. Those two combined for 9 catches, 259 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So they one-upped Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. I think the story here is Brian Hartline, Zone 6. They just keep reloading, Bud. And Caden Dixon-Wyatt, to me, the player comp on his 24/7 sports profile is Carnell Tate. Like, I think he's another Carnell Tate. Chris Henry, by far one of the most polarizing evaluations in this class, right? The son of the late Chris Henry. He is a freak, 6'5", 200 pounds, runs a 4.59 in the 40-yard dash, but missed the bulk of his junior season with a knee injury, has been dinged up as a senior. So really encouraging to see him go off, and kind of reminds me of Nico Collins, like this big X on the outside that can take a top off a defense. So yeah, Brian Hartline, I think he's the best in all of college football when it comes to fine-tuning these wide receivers. Again, look at Jeremiah Smith, look at Carnell Tate, look at all the guys that came before them. And Julian Sayin is going to have some weapons to throw to in the coming years.
So a couple things here I want to add to this. One, I'm glad to see that some of these catches for Chris Henry are not wide open. I think I've seen him, 3 times in person now at various events, and I was always like, hey, some of these balls I need you to come down with if you're that big. Like I need you to win contested catches. Like Jeremiah would catch these, and like in my in-person experience seeing him, like he kind of didn't. But like here, like those are nice, man. Like there's defenders draped all over him, 2 of those catches. Like that's, I know it's small sample set, both on like me seeing him in person and also there. Like, you've seen the whole film. Like I'm sure, the hands are much better than that. But yeah, like that's quite encouraging. As for a guy who was hurt as a junior and then was a little bit banged up as a senior, but showed real flashes, there is a guy from our backyard named Amari Cooper, who missed his junior year with Teddy Bridgewater was his quarterback, right? And then as a senior, he was kind of banged up. And then he ended up being first team All-State 8A, and I think crushed it in the playoff. Yeah, 772 yards down the stretch. So, like, guys do turn it on at different times with the health. That I agree with you. That's a very polarizing evaluation there. Well, Buckeyes currently – I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, Bud, like when my boss texted me in August after Chris Henry, went off on ESPN, it was like, how is this guy not a 5-star prospect? It's like, well, he was hurt. He played less than 50 snaps as a junior. You brought up those events. I mean, I remember seeing him at a 7-on-7 tournament. It's like when you throw 10 jump balls to the guy that's 6'6", like, got to come down with one of them, and that was not the case. But no, I think the most encouraging thing for Chris Henry, making those contested catches. I like what he's doing after the catch and capitalizing on the rack opportunities. Both those guys scheduled to be in San Antonio at the Navy All-American Bowl. If Ohio State doesn't pull them into, I would assume, college football playoff preparation, I don't know. They would be excellent decoys for whoever they're going to face. But no, Ohio State's got 2 good ones, and they got a bunch of other wide receivers committed as well.
So they currently sit number 9 in the ratings. Number 1, obviously, in the playoff, or in the polls. The playoff rankings come out tonight. We don't actually know what they'll be rated, but certainly if they handle business, that they'll be the number 1 seed and get into the playoffs, obviously, with that bye. number 9 in the rankings right now, but is anybody poised to close stronger than the Buckeyes potentially?
Yeah, but I think this kind of applies to college football as a whole right now. And I wanted to ask you this question. We've seen all these early season, mid-season firings. Like,
Yes.
is that because athletic directors think that they're going to have a coach in time before signing day? Because I just don't see that like being the case. And the recruiting calendar has just changed so much in terms of everyone races to fill their recruiting classes, by July 4th when all the coaches are on vacation. And then you turn the focus to your season and recruiting's on the back burner. And, with all of these openings, I think if you have stability, right? If you have continuity, if you're not changing a bunch of parts, right, up in the booth, on the sidelines, you're in an advantageous position to be extremely aggressive, especially if you're winning on the field. So Ohio State is one of these few programs right now with 4 weeks to go where they can bust out the spatula. They can go hunting on commit list. And from my perspective, they're making excellent senior season evaluations. I get on Bucknuts all the time, and I do this with all the teams in the 24/7 Sports Network. And I look at the visitors list, and with Ohio State, yeah, it's a lot of underclassmen, but you'll see, a handful of seniors there. And I'm like, well, this kid's playing really good. This kid's playing really good. This kid's really playing good. So, yeah, Ohio State's number 9 right now. They've signed a top 5 recruiting class in 6 consecutive years. I don't know if they're going to finish in the top 5, but it's been a while since we said, watch the finish for Ohio State. But I think that's the case because it's very unique right now. There's openings at LSU. There's openings at Penn State. And I don't know when those jobs are going to get filled.
I mean, think about this. Like some of the names that they're, well, okay, to your point, as far as like, why are they firing some of these guys now? I do think some of it's like jockeying for position. In some cases, you may be able to get the guy hired, before signing day, right? In some cases, maybe the guy can back channel who he wants you to hire as a GM, right? Like if that guy's available, maybe he bounces. Like if you were a GM currently at at a P4 school that's no longer in the playoff race, or at basically any G5 school, I just don't think you're going to catch heat if you jump jobs right now. As a head coach, if you jump while you're still in the playoff race, you would catch hell for that, and probably should, because you're like leading the team, and that would just be like a really bad quitter look, right? But if you're a GM, like maybe in some cases, some of these schools that aren't filled yet, maybe they have a GM in place next week or 2 weeks before signing day, just to kind of get the ball rolling, right?
Well, if we stay with this like current calendar, does it make more sense for the GM and like the head coach not to be attached necessarily, like connected? It'd be more.
I'm glad you brought this up. I do think that there's I think we're still very early in the college ball cycle for this like independent GM and head coach power dynamic to work, right? Like it works in the NFL because you also have a team president who's actually fairly involved in operations, whereas most ADs are not, because they're running a lot of different other things and they're fundraising, And in college, I mean, your head coaches are making like 4 or 5x what the best quarterbacks make, and 10x over almost everybody on your roster. Like that just creates a power dynamic we don't have in the NFL. I mean, Andy Reid doesn't make 4x Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes makes like 4x Andrew Reid. You see what I'm saying? Like it's a lot harder to fire the guy if he makes more money than the top 10 players in your roster combined.
Yeah, I don't think we have the answers to the puzzle, but I think,
like, is he really going to answer to him? Like what do these top GMs make? 320?
Well, I think maybe, they make more.
Maybe some make like 550.
They're making way more than that now.
You think they're making $1 million?
Oh yeah. Someone just USA Today just put out their list. It was.
Oh, they did. Okay.
It was a bit.
They're making $1 million.
A lot of guys are north of 5. A few have crept up into the, what is that, 7 figures?
Okay, so even if they're making $1 million, just like to keep the math simple on this, if your head coach is making 10, like in what world are you making 10x your boss?
Yeah, no,
I just don't think that power dynamic works.
Well, I just think, given the 12-team playoff, given And maybe this
Right.
is a unique year because it feels like the early signing period is the earliest it's been in a long time. I mean, I remember it
Yeah,
being a
because the
few
way the
days
calendar
before,
falls.
yeah, a few days
Yeah.
before Christmas not too long ago. But it certainly, I don't, it's just making things very interesting in terms of, you know, if you're again a school that is, going to be talked about tonight with the college football playoff seeding, and you think you're keeping a bulk of what you got going on in place, it's allowing you to get extremely aggressive
Mhm.
and to try to pry some of these guys away. The other thing too, Bud, is like I said it. There's like no big December, January recruiting weekends. So like Ohio State's dialing up a big one in 2 weeks when UCLA comes to town. Like game day official visit weekends are back.
I mean, which is kind of cool, right? But like it's
I'm sure. I'm sure there's personnel people out there that are not happy because the kids play on Friday night. It's just very unique cycle, I think, is what I've arrived at, and I want to know if this is the norm moving forward.
I think it could be. All right, so let's finish on Ohio State though, real quick, because I think this is really interesting. You got a lot of names on this list. Of them, one. So you have what? One, two, three, four, five, six. Like you have like 6 or 7 names here. Almost all of them are attached to schools that either have fired their coach or probably should fire their coach, and likely will be doing so soon. How much do you think that plays into Ohio State, as you were saying? Like, who are these guys you think they can really flip?
Yeah, Kevin Brown, offensive lineman, longtime Penn State commit. He was at Ohio State this past weekend. Top 247 player for us. Very, very athletic. I think Penn State has taken Ohio State has taken a massive taking advantage of James Franklin not being there, and there being some uncertainty in Happy Valley, right? And those two programs overlap a lot when it comes to recruiting, same territory. And yes, recruiting has gotten so national, but there's still some regionality to it. And I think Ohio State is capitalizing there. They're also looking for another cornerback in their class. They got a lot of safeties committed. They've already flipped Kamari Bing, a kid out of St. Francis Academy. They flipped him from Maryland. I'm a big fan of him. He's got a ton of range, but they want to add a corner. And when I look at their recruiting class and kind of parse through all the tape, I agree. They're missing kind of a guy that can play on the outside. CJ Brona out of Florida. He's committed to the Gators. He was originally committed to Nebraska, flipped to Billy Napier and co. Back-to-back Florida champ in the 100-meter dash. This guy can roll. Now, I think he's more of a developmental guy, but hey, Ohio State, Devin Sanchez, 5-star corner. He's played over 150 snaps this season. Like, they don't need immediate help. I just think they need some long-term help there. And they're also after Jay Timmons, who we've talked about on the Cover 3 recruiting hour before. NFL pedigree, really, really good there. He's committed to Florida State. Knowles working to keep him on there. So, yeah, I think it's a smart strategy for Mark Pantonio, who's kind of the godfather in this GM role, and so much has had to change for him and adapt. But I think, to me, from my perspective, Ohio State has kind of got this thing figured out in terms of, okay, we're going to push our chips in for the right guys. We're going to sit back. We're going to wait, and we're going to find the players where the arrow is clearly pointing up as they embark on their collegiate careers. I think a lot of recruiting departments would want to be in that position. Obviously, it helps that Ohio State just won a national championship and is top 2 in all of the polls. But I don't know, Bud. I think everyone is still trying to figure out, okay, how do we piece the roster together? There's a ton of different ways to bake a pie. Ohio State's model and vision right now, to me, seems to be the best one.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Like we were ranking jobs, and I think universally we all had Ohio State as number one, just because I feel like regardless of who you hire, that they just keep rolling on really since like World War II. So